They're connected.
More than you know.
What's up, guys? And it's the Scenes Hub here once again. Infected was a stellar follow-up to The Last of Us Season 1 Episode 1. Just because it expanded on the bombshell surrounding Ellie's immunity. Well, today I am going to give you a breakdown of The Last of Us Season 1 Episode 2, and drop a couple of reviews, a recap, critique, as well as a comparison of the PS4 game. Well, now PS5 is already in, so PS5 game as well. No spoiler alert in this video. I will share a bit of a theory at the end of this video, so I just want you to stay with me and get to know more of it. Just enjoy this video and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and we'll appreciate if we could get just 10 likes for this particular video. Alright, so let's go. The Last of Us second episode opens in 2003 in Indonesia. As you already saw, even if you haven't seen it, that's what was going to happen in any way. We were going to get a recap of what happened in Indonesia, Jakarta. We'll get more into that. So we saw authorities arrive in a restaurant and pick up a woman, and this woman happens to be Ibu Ratna, a professor of mycology who also works at a neighboring university. They needed her assistant to try to stop whatever that was happening, with the illness. So she was led to the lab with a cordyceps specimen, as we all saw on the screen. If you haven't seen it, I did see it. So anyways, that cordyceps is what is affecting the human race. That is known as the fungus, spreading all over the world. Let's look at what the cordyceps is about. But before we do that, big ups to Heavy Spoilers for giving us another insight on the origination of this strange fungus. For those who haven't watched this video, I will put down a link in the comments section so that you can have a full overview of whatever that Heavy Spoilers talked about. His explanation was very simple and clear. Our channel team is well versed with this, and it was because of the video game adaptation and a couple of findings we did in the past. That is how come we knew more about the cordyceps. So the episode 2 continues where the introduction was still in, and we get the introduction from Indonesia, Jakarta, and that's where we connect episode 1 to episode 2 when Sarah and Joel were having breakfast. It was circulating on the news about some strange thing going on in Jakarta. This is what we have so far, and it's because there's a backdated scene for us to understand what really happened. And as you remember, in episode 1, that was when Dr. Newman started talking about something strange happening, and Sarah made mention of Jakarta, and we had a feeling, or we knew that we were going to get a bit of a scene from Indonesia to actually tell us about what is happening, how the disease is spreading over there. I don't know whether we should call this a disease, but it's an illness in any way. This is a fungi spreading all over the world. So this episode was all about Joel, Tess, and Ellie, which was fantastic for a variety of reasons, but especially because we got to know both Ellie and Tess a little bit better just in time for Tess to die tragically. Yes, so for those who don't know, Tess died in episode 2, and it's something that we can forever talk about. So let's move on. So Professor Ibu Ratna further goes on to establish a few things about the cordyceps. It's firmly said, no vaccine, no medicine for this strange illness. And we ask ourselves, how are humans going to survive? So as it goes on, she weeps very badly. This tells us the world is in a big crisis. The doom has finally come, and the human race will be erased in just a matter of time. Specifically, this happened to an infected human who had been bitten on her leg, and Ibu is convinced that she can't survive. Ibu is convinced that that cordyceps cannot survive in the human body. I don't know why, but I think there's an interesting theory that I'll be sharing with you, as I mentioned. So do stay with me to the end of this video so that you can also get a full recap about this cordyceps. If you remember, this show is not using the same cause of infection with the spores as the games. Ibu examines the woman, notices tendrils, in her mouth it's kind of disgusting if you can recall. And that scene wasn't really good for me myself. We didn't really enjoy watching that scene, but we had to in any ways. We love the show, and I know you are all going to love the show as well. So that is what we saw in episode 1. That particular tendrils in episode 1 when Mrs. Adler was attacked the family, and that was when Sarah saw Mrs. Adler doing that. But as she said, there is no vaccine. Professor Ratner has confirmed, and she firmly suggests that they need to start bombing the city. Just everywhere, they start bombing everywhere. And this was because the guard asked what could be done. I think these were the military men, the soldiers in the city asking what could be done, to save them. And for a professor to suggest such thing, you can tell that this is not going to be easy for the human race at all. Alright, so a quick thing. So for those who have been playing the video game before, this is getting better even for all the other people. In the video game, there's less of this talked about in the introduction. It's more of human crisis at the beginning. It's a great adaptation with the directors and producers to let viewers get versed with the other side of the world on this cordyceps and what the world is going to be. In this case, we are going to have other locations, which mean a diversified moments and actions along the line. I think we have to give up big ups to the producer for taking this great 10, and I am really loving it already. After watching The Last of Us Season 1 Episode 2, we can safely say that this is the best video game adaptation ever. If you believe this is the best video game adaptation ever, drop a like and comment below what you think, or if you do believe so. And I think it's also tricky to pull off these cliffhangers, but the resolution is even more challenging because you need to give viewers satisfaction. And after waiting with that bated breath for the next chapter. So the show continues where we get to see Ellie once again. Sunshine is shining down on Ellie as she awakens. Joel and Tess are both looking at her suspiciously, and I think we already know why Joel and Tess were looking at her. She's immune. She's been bitten. She's not turning, and that is the problem. Joe believes for any moment Ellie could turn into something else, and they just have to watch out very well. But she further goes on to mention her testing and how Marlene imprisoned her, counting each day to see if she contracted this sort of illness. I think this was a way for Marlene to test if the brain of Ellie has been affected, by counting 1 to 10, counting her fingers, standing straight up and all that. This is really interesting. Joe wrist has a hairline fracture and is broken. But as he brushed it off and, persuades Tess, but Tess also tries to persuade him for him to understand that this is something that they really need to do very well because they need a particular car battery. With nature's reclaiming of every building, car and dining table in full swing, set design remains one of the show high points. I believe so. Every tent serves as a reminder that these once bustling city no longer belong to humanity. As fangirls trans-twist through the streets like, the way electricity will be running through the city, no image is as stark as a mass gathering of an infected colony. Just seeing that from above alone is intriguing, is a bit shocking as to how many humans are falling prey to this particular disease. Anyways, the show moves on, but unfortunately a clicker appears and Joe, Tess and Ellie runs into a bigger problem. This creature shambles into the room and the sound design is fantastic. I think it's fantastic because when you play the video game, it just sounded the same. Very irritating and frightening. I don't know about you, but whatever you think, you feel, just comment it down below. Joel was trying to be very careful because he had learned so much about them. Unfortunately, when a clicker appears, you run into a bigger problem. This creature shambles into the room and the sound design is fantastic. I think the design was fantastic because when you play the video game, it's the same sound, very frightening, very irritating, and it's accompanied by another clicker. And Joel tells Ellie, don't make any noise, because the little noise is going to be a huge problem. They only follow the sound, vibration. They can't see, it's just a matter of sound. But Ellie could not hold off and makes a little bit of noise, and this clicker just attacks them. I think this was a tense scene for me, but Joel was able to land a knockout blow on both opponents, leaving Ellie with a scratch and Tess with a twisted ankle. And I think this was a moment for them to make shifts. If you don't have shifts on you, how can you kill a clicker? Following the clicker encounter, the group ascends to the roof. Joel assists Tess after she sprained her ankle. Tess laments Joel's negative attitude and advises him to see Ellie instead. This scene from the game is flawless with Joel. I think this scene from the movie is flawless with Joel and Ellie gazing off into the distance at the state house. It's only a brief moment, like a brief moment for them to make a move. So finally, the group gets to the state house, where Joel conducts a quick investigation. There's fresh blood spatters, and indicates that there are people in the building. So Tess and Ellie proceed to the location when they discover several dead bodies on the floor. Joel takes that lead and examines the damage, and it appears this is not something which the Federal did, just like in the game. The game was quite different, but here it believed that the infected, attacked the Fireflies, and the Fireflies, the Firefly had to attack themselves. So that was what really happened. So as the show moves on, Tess decided to stay despite that she's been infected, and because she was infected, she didn't want the group to see. She was trying to hide it, but Ellie knew that she's been infected, not because of her looks, but the way she was talking. She started panicking, and that's when Ellie knew no, Tess had been infected. To Joel's surprise, it said, this is the end of the road. This is the end of the road for us. And she had to stay and fight whatever she had to fight. So we hear the guys banging on the door, and Tess sacrificed, by pouring fuel on the floor and sparking that flame to burn them into ashes. I think it was a heartbreaking moment. This short of time, we get a slower, paced moment as well. But it was a goodbye for Tess, and I think it's been good. But before Tess died, she persuaded Joel to continue with this mission and ensure she gets to Bill and Frank's house. And it was all about keeping Ellie alive, because Ellie is a bait. Ellie is the person who is so important here. And without Ellie, they cannot get anything. They cannot get anything at all. The mission to Frank and Bill is going to be difficult, because Ellie is going to give Joel a hard time, because she's grieving. She's grieving the death of Tess. And this is a short moment for us to get history that the bond between Ellie and Joel is going to be a different one, now that one of their escorts had been killed by this unfortunate illness. And it's obvious Ellie didn't want to abandon Tess, but it was clear she wasn't going to make any best decision as well. If she had stayed longer, the infected would have attacked her, negating everything that had happened so far. I think it's been an exciting one, but we just didn't get more action from this particular episode. This is based on my opinion, but we believe there's a long story that is coming up, and we all have to follow through. So now with a review, as The Last of Us goes through with various stories and decisions that any post-apocalyptic show must make, this second episode gives the audience a better idea of how things have degenerated here. When you're lost in the darkness, focus on the collapse and restoration of order in a controlled environment. Infected is the first large scale examining everything that has been left behind. It's not quite irradiated, desolate wasteland that follows total destruction. It's also not in the frozen in amber, where that ghost town seems like a beautiful hunting, but it is what it is. We had to get it that way. And to me, Pedro Pascal has been the best choice for the role of Joel. From the games to the perfection, he can pull off every aspect of Joel's personality. And a major point and major plot points for the Last of Us episode. While some are intriguing, others are not. But before we get there, it's worth noting the excellent parts of this particular episode. The entire Clickers experience was absolutely pitch perfect, which was a fantastic sound throughout. I think so, because when I play the video game, I get the goosebumps the moment I hear the clickers coming all over the place. The new lore with the infected showing off the tendrils that are all connected is also a nice touch, but it contradicts Tess and Ellie's conversation about the infected giving off fungal spores when killed. So I think it depends on where it happens, how the environment grooms to be like. They tend to work well or grow well in hot environments, and there's something I'll be dropping right now, a theory about, and a theory where we link it to what Dr. Newman talked about. The developing relation between Joel and Ellie over the time contributes significantly to the game's adding. They progress from strangers who dislike each other to a father-daughter bond, and this is a great moment for all of us, and we know why it happened that way. In fact, all of the scenes with Ellie and Tess conversing would have worked much better if Tess and Joel switched places, allowing Joel to learn more about this young girl. The pair's relationship has the potential to become something special in the future, and it's not going to be as strong as it was in the game, but we should expect it to be as strong as it is. So, theory time. If we can recall what Dr. Newman mentioned, something about the fungus being able to survive at hot temperatures, where he mentioned 94 degrees. Well, he was talking about Fahrenheit. That's what the US say. In the UK is Celsius. So we are looking about 34 degrees Celsius, 94 degrees Fahrenheit. And it is presumed that this fungi or this infection can not mutate quickly in cold areas. The infected are not able to move faster and quicker. They are sort of slowed down in a certain way. And this is because they are not getting the warmer regions. So this is how we can link the hot temperatures to Indonesia. Indonesia can be very hot, hence it made it very adaptable for these infected to start moving quicker and faster than we can assume. And you remember that Ibu Ratna, the professor, confirmed that this cordyceps cannot survive in human. But here's the case where she herself sounds weird, knowing that these creatures exist and finding them in the mouth of that particular dead body. I'll give this episode 11 out of 10 for the detailed description, the vivid display, and the great connection from episode 1 and episode 2, and even give us a great introduction about Jakarta, what really happened in Jakarta and how it came in the news in episode 1. If you watch this video and you haven't liked our video, please don't forget to subscribe, and please don't forget to like this video and share it to your mates. We'll see you on the next episode.